that part of the mylar card first. So we enter the bottom row of the pattern and press CF. It's off. Right. Turn the change knob round to KC2 for a single motif. And we've selected our needles. Put the second colour in, push the multicolour button, and we're off. The pattern's gone back to the first row. And here's a sample of our knitted name. Well, we've knit your signature, Wendy, but we've still got one trick left up our sleeve. We're going to knit the house and the boat as two separate single motifs.
Right.
We'll program the machine. Press the memory button and the pattern number light lights up. We're still looking at the mylar sheet, so we enter 901. Put the pattern selector switch to the middle to help us do our two separate motifs. Press the memory button and the bottom of the boat lights up. The machine is asking us where on the mylar sheet our pattern begins. Enter 1, press the memory button. Where does our pattern end? Line 36, press the memory button. What's the left-hand edge of the boat? That begins at 1, press the memory button. The boat finishes at 19, press the memory button. Now we're going to put that pattern on the left-hand side of our knitting from orange 39 to orange 21, and we're going to have the edge of the boat on the edge of the patterning needles. So we enter orange 39 for the edge of the boat and orange 39 for the edge of our patterning needles. We want the pattern to finish on orange 21. Well, that takes care of our first motif, the boat. Now let's do the house. The left-hand side of the house is lit up and the machine is asking us where on our mylar sheet the house begins. The house begins on line 20. Press the memory button. Where does the house finish? The house finishes on line 40. Press the memory button. We're going to put the house on the right-hand side of our knitting from green 21 to green 40, and we're going to have the edge of the house on the edge of our patterning needles. So we enter green 21 for the edge of our house and green 21 for the edge of our patterning needles. The house will finish at green 40. We've told the machine where to look for the pattern on the mylar sheet, and now we have to tell it to go and do that. So we enter 1, card forward. Now we're ready to begin knitting. You can see from the marks we made in the right-hand column that I've got to change my yarn here.
Touch of white.
And I've got to change my yarn again.
It's going to look pretty jazzy when you finish.
And here's a sample that I've knit up. Your 950i has a much bigger memory than the 950. In fact, it frees you to design your patterns up to 200 stitches wide. It will remember the information on from 26 to 28 Mylar sheets at a time. If you think of the machine as a bowl and your Mylar sheets as marbles, you can drop up to 28 marbles into your bowl, either singly or in units, and you can take them out in the same way. Let's see how the pattern sheets help us to do our design. Each pattern sheet is 60 stitches wide and 150 rows long. So if you want your pattern to be wider than 60 stitches or longer than 150 rows, you'll need to use more than one Mylar sheet. The machine reads the sheets consecutively in order, numbering them as it goes, starting from the bottom left-hand corner and going along the bottom row until it comes to the end of the pattern, and then moving up to the next row, starting again at the left-hand side and going along that row. If you want your pattern to be 200 stitches wide, you will need 4 cards, and the machine will read the cards up to the 20th stitch on the left-hand side of the last one. Then it will move up to the next row and begin again at the left-hand side. If you do a design which is diagonally across your sheets and you find one of them is blank, you'll still have to include that when you ask the machine to read your pattern. Now let's see how we use our paper pattern sheets to do a design. Here's a pattern I've drawn out on my design sheets. It's 120 stitches wide but less than 150 rows long, so I'll need 2 sheets for this pattern. I stuck 2 paper sheets together to make it easier for me to draw out. Now that I've done the drawing, I take my Mylar sheet and place it carefully over the drawing and mark the drawing out with a special pen provided. Now when I've finished the cards, I'll number them 1 and 2. Let's put them into the machine. Turn the machine on and the ready light comes on. I'm going to enter 777. This is the mode number that's telling the machine I want it to read a pattern from my Mylar sheets. Press the memory button and the pattern number light comes on. There's a number in the window, 901. This is the number the machine has allocated to this particular pattern, which will be stored in the memory of the machine as part of my library of stitch patterns, so I must remember it when I want to knit the pattern again. Press the memory button and the light on either side of the boat on the card comes up. These lights are asking me how many cards wide my pattern is. The pattern's 120 stitches, so it's 2 cards wide. Enter 2, press the memory button. The light at the top and the bottom of the boat on the card comes up. The machine is asking me how many cards high my pattern is. My pattern's less than 150 rows, so it's only 1 card high. Enter number 1 and press the memory button. The ready light comes on and number 1 appears in the window. The machine is telling me it is ready to read card 1 of my pattern. Turn the machine off and enter the card in the card inlet slot. Roll it down so it's lined up with a set line just above the card inlet slot. Turn the machine on, press CF, and the machine is reading the pattern row by row. When it's finished reading card number 1, it spits the card back out at me. Turn the machine off again. Enter card number 2. Line it up at the set line. Turn the machine on. Press CF. Now it's finished reading the second card of the pattern, and you can go straight on and knit this pattern. We've already stored all the pattern information into the memory in the machine, but if we want additional information while we knit, we can use the card to give us this. Turn the machine off and enter the card in the card inlet slot. Line it up with a set line and turn the machine on. Tell the machine you want it to go to the bottom row of your pattern. In this case, it's 3, and press CF. Take the carriage outside the turn mark. Move the change knob to KC1 and bring the carriage back to select your needles. You can see the needles that have been selected are the same as the pattern as it appears at the top of the card inlet slot. Now you're ready to put your second colour in the carriage, push the multicolour button and knit your pattern. And this is the knitted sample. When you finish knitting your pattern and you've used the card to give you additional information, remember to press your RR button before you remove the card from the machine. We've knitted one whole pattern. Now let's knit a small section of a larger pattern as an all-over design. This pattern is 180 stitches wide and 220 rows long, so I've used 6 mylar sheets. I'm just going to knit this small section. If we look at the bottom line of the pattern, it's line 11. But this card is the second one up from the bottom of the pattern, so I add 150 rows to my 11, giving me 161 for the bottom line of this section. If we look at the left-hand edge, we want to start the pattern at stitch 12. But this is the second card from the left edge of the pattern, so I'll have to add 60 stitches to my 12 to give me the left-hand edge of my section, making 72. Now let's put this on the machine. Turn the machine on and the ready light comes on. Because we're knitting a small section, we enter 999, press the memory button until the pattern number light comes on. This pattern's already been stored in the machine under number 902. Press the memory button and the light at the bottom of the boat on the card comes up. The machine is asking us what the bottom line of our pattern is. Remember, the bottom line of our pattern is 161. Press the memory button. What's the top line of our pattern? The top line of our pattern is 211. Press the memory button. The light on the left of the boat on the card comes up. What's the left edge of our pattern? You remember the left edge of our pattern is 72. Press the memory button. The light at the right of the boat comes up. What's the right edge of our pattern? The right edge of our pattern is 109. Press the memory button and the light in the middle of the boats on the garment lights up. Where do we want the edge of our pattern? We'll have the edge of our pattern in the middle of our knitting, so we enter green 1. Press the memory button and the ready light comes on. The machine is ready to begin knitting the pattern. Take the carriage outside the change mark. Tell the machine to go to the bottom row of the section you've selected. 161. Press CF. Turn the change knob on the carriage and take the carriage across to select your needles. Enter the second colour. Press the multicolour button. And this is the section knitted. If you want to delete one of your patterns because you feel you no longer need it or you want to make room for a new one, this is the way you do it. Turn the machine on and the ready light comes on. Enter 777 for the card reading mode. Press the memory button and the pattern number light comes on. The machine is offering you a number for your new pattern, but you want to delete one you've already stored. So you enter the number of the pattern you wish to delete. 906. Press CR. Then press CR again to get the ready light back on again. You have now deleted pattern number 906. On the Brother 950i, you have an additional method of storing your patterns. You can use the Brother disk drive, which you plug into the port at the left edge of your machine. You can also use this port to plug in the PPD110, that is the Brother Pattern Programming device.
Now, Janet, we all know that things can go wrong, even with the most organised and professional knitter like yourself. So I think we ought to sort out one or two potential problems. What would I do, for example, if the cat had kicked over my yarn and the carriage had jammed in the middle of a row?
Well, when you're knitting pattern knitting, you mean something like this?
Yeah.
Ah, yes. Well, the first thing you want to do is to press CR, which locks your pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Then you loosen the thumb screws and you remove the sinker plate. At the same time, you can remove your yarn. And loop it under the edge of your machine. Turn your change knob round to CR, and now you can lift the carriage off the needle bed. Put it down very carefully, making sure that it's well aligned, and turn your change knob back to NL. Remember, you've cancelled your patterning button. Now we can put our sinker plate back on the front of the carriage. And we've finished that. But if we look at the knitting, we'll see all the needles are everywhere, and we still have to get rid of our yarn, which is somewhere in the middle of the row. So we unravel it.
Not too difficult.
A little bit of patience, and it comes away quite easily. But we've still got our needles everywhere. So we'll push them all forward. Take the cast-on cord that was in your box of accessories, and we'll knit a row. That brings all our knitting back into the needle hooks, and all we have to do is to unravel the cast-on cord. Before we continue, we have to reset our pattern on the needles. The error light is still flashing, so we press CE to cancel that. Then we tell the machine we've unraveled one row and press CR. Take the carriage outside the turn mark, turn the change knob round to KC1 and push our part buttons in. Now we're ready to reselect our pattern needles. There we are. All we have to do is to rethread and we can begin knitting again.
That's not too complicated. So Janet, what if the doorbell rings and I have to go down and answer it and I want to turn the machine off?
That's certainly no problem. All you have to do is to turn the machine off. But you must remember, before you begin again, you must take the carriage outside the turn mark before you turn the machine on again. And then you can continue knitting.
And what if I want to use the pattern variation switch? I'm not quite clear on that.
Oh, I see what you mean. Perhaps you might want to knit one motif facing one way, and then for the next repeat, you might want to turn it around.
Yes,
in other words,
yeah.
you want to push switch number 1 up.
Right.
What you have to do is to watch your pattern panel window, and when you come to the row before the end, then you switch number 1 up, and when you've knit that last row, you're ready to begin with a pattern facing in the other direction.
What if I'm doing lace patterning and I realise I've forgotten to knit 2 rows right in the middle of the pattern?
Ah, that's a problem that we can often have. We seem to get carried away when we're using both carriages, and we sometimes miss the number in the panel and bring the carriage across by mistake. Well, what you do is you return your needles and you remove the lace carriage back to the left side of the machine and you knit the 2 rows you forgot. Now you've got to tell the machine that you want to go back 2 rows, so you press 2 and CR, and you can begin knitting your lace again.
I know there's one problem I'm going to have, Janet, if I'm knitting a fair isle pattern and I come to the neckline.
This is something that worries a lot of people. What we'll have to do is to knit 1 shoulder at a time. So we put the stitches for one side of our garment into holding position, and we tell the carriage not to knit those needles in holding position. We turn our row counter back to 0, and we continue to knit half our garment. Of course, we do have to shape the neckline.
So you're shaping as you go, really, there?
That's right. When we've finished knitting one side, we can break the yarn and take that side off the knitting. We deactivate our row counter, turn our patterning off, and we take the carriage across and remove that shoulder. Then we look at our row counter to see how many rows we've knit. We enter that number in the panel and CR. Return those stitches for the second shoulder so that we can reset the needles. By knitting a row with a cord and then unraveling it. Take our carriage outside the turn mark and turn the change knob to K-seat 1. Push the part buttons in because we want to reset our needles. And there we are, ready to continue knitting the second shoulder. And here's a sample of a knitted neckline.
Well, Janet, thank you. That was an extremely comprehensive look at the wide range of facilities available in this magical machine. But I know we haven't quite finished. You've got something else up your sleeve, haven't you?
I have. In addition to the 550 stitch patterns that we can see in the Stitch World book, there are some patterns that aren't pictured in the book, and we can find out about them on page 23 of the instruction manual. You can program a letter of the alphabet, switch number 1 must be up, and you enter the number when the pattern number light comes on. Numbers 601 to 626 are all capital letters, 10 stitches wide except for I, which is 6 stitches wide, and they're all 16 rows long. Numbers 627 to 653 are all lowercase letters. Switch number 1 has still got to be up. Most are 10 stitches wide, except I and L, which are 6 stitches wide. J, K, R, T are 8 stitches wide, and F is 9 stitches wide. Most are all 12 rows long, except B, D, F, H, J, I, K, L, T, which are 16 rows long, and G is 14 rows long. Another useful pattern, number 703, gives us an automatic braid. To do this, we push needles orange 5 to green 6, forward to holding position. We push back to non-working position, 1 and 2 orange and 2 and 3 green. We'll then E-wrap the rest of our needles. And knit a few rows. Turn the machine on and enter 990 for simple patterning. Press the memory button until the pattern number light comes on, and we'll enter 703 for our automatic braid pattern. Press the memory button and the machine is ready to begin. Take the carriage outside the turn mark and turn the change knob to KC2. Now we've set our needles, we press our tuck buttons in and knit our automatic braid. This braid is 11 stitches wide and 6 rows long. And there's our automatic braid pattern.
Well, that's lovely, Janet. Well, I hope that all of you watching this video will find it very useful in using your 950 machine, and that you'll be able to tackle things with more confidence and be a bit more adventurous about the garments that you make, because really with the 950 there is absolutely no limit.